I tell them that we're essentially like your little minions, and you're kind of like Gru, and we run around and we do things for you.
Okay.
You're obviously in Sacramento Monday through Thursday, so we kind of hold it down for you for Monday through Thursday while you're up representing the district.
Welcome back to Dreaming Big, Working Hard. I'm David Alvarez, and I represent the 80th Assembly District here in the South San Diego County. And on this show, we usually sit down with remarkable people who are doing amazing work in our community. Today's episode is a little bit different because the remarkable work that I want to talk about and I want to share with you happens inside my own office. When people think about what an assembly member does, they usually picture Sacramento, committee hearings, debate, floor votes, bills being introduced. But there's another half of this work that most people never see and they don't talk about. And it might be the most important part of the job. It's what changes lives day to day. And it happens right here in the district, here in San Diego. And it's done by a team of people whose names aren't on the ballot. And if you've ever called my office, you have called about an unemployment claim that was stuck. Your Medi-Cal got cut off. You couldn't get a hold from the DMV, EDD. You've probably talked to some of the people that are sitting with me here today. And I'll tell you something up front. I know that this work is really important because I used to do this job for about 6 years. I was doing what is called constituent work, district representative for State Senator Denise Moreno-Duchenne. And I'll be honest with you, that really is what has led me to my journey and the work that I do as a legislator today. It's why this office is built the way that it is. And it's why being connected to this community isn't just a talking point. It's the job that we do. Liliana, Barba, and Ernesto Castañeda are field representatives in our district office. They are the front line of the office. They cover the district from Barrio Logan all the way to Tijuana River Valley, National City, Chula Vista, Imperial Beach. And today, about halfway through today's program, we're going to flip the script and they are going to interview me. I did not get a chance to see their questions in advance, so we'll see how that goes. And I also want to give a quick shout out to the rest of the district office team, led by our director, who's Elisa Schmidt. Appreciate the work that she does, and Chris and Katia. And also, we always have a robust intern program. We have interns Hassan, Isaiah, Alexander. And if you have a young person who's interested in this, I suggest that you reach out to our office. But Liliana and Ernesto are here with me today, and I want to thank you both for being here and be willing to talk about the work that you do. How are you guys doing?
Good. Yeah, thanks so much for having us. I've always wanted to be on a podcast like this.
All right. It's the first
Hola,
time ever.
Hola, pa. Saludos a la familia.
Liliana, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be here and have some time to talk to you about the work we do here in the district.
And I definitely want to hear about some of the specifics about the stuff you do. You always write a report for me every weekend, so I know exactly what you're working on. But that's a summarized version of your day-to-day work, so I want to hear more about that. But first, let's talk about your title. You're something called a field representative, which a lot of people may not know what that means. When somebody asks you what you do and you say that's what you are, what do you hear back? Like, what's the response?
Yeah, I have an ongoing joke with my friends and family. When they ask me about what my job is. I tell them that we're essentially like your little minions, and you're kind of like Gru, and we run around and we do things for you.
Okay.
You're obviously in Sacramento Monday through Thursday, so we kind of hold it down for you Monday through Thursday while you're up representing the district.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what I tell people in kind of a joking way that I work for a elected official, and we kind of are the eyes and ears.
So Ernesto jokes. Liliana, how do you approach it when people ask you? I don't see you much of a joker, but what do you say?
Yes. I usually, when people ask me, family members or friends, I usually say I represent you in the community, and I report back to you the concerns I hear from the community, because that's what you use for your advocacy in Sacramento, and that's what you do when you're thinking of new bills to introduce, because you always want to address the issues that are affecting our communities every day.
Yeah. And, I used to work for a politician. You do that now. And sometimes, now these days, it seems like it's sometimes much more polarizing than it was when I was a field representative representing a state senator. What is the response you get when you talk about that work? Like, what is the feel out in the community? I know a lot of people feeling very anxious about what's happening in their lives and how government relates to that. Like, what's the general sense that you get?
And so we do get those comments and concerns of the fear of what's going to happen and people losing their trust in the government. But they also believe and trust that there are elected representatives that do care about the community and do care about what we go through every day. And that's what brings them hope. And that's what allows them to believe that there will be change and that there are elected officials working to bring those opportunities to our communities.
Thanks for sharing that, because it's good to hear that that's still the case. I mean, when you report back on what's happening, I feel like people are realizing we want to do good work for them in Sacramento, but sometimes people are also feeling like we're disconnected. And so when I was doing the work that you do for a state representative, I really wanted to make sure that people knew that we actually cared about what they had to say. And so, as you stated, Ernesto, I'm gone Monday through Thursday, so it's really hard to really be everywhere. But on a regular day, on Tuesday, Wednesday of the week, you're going from, tell me about what your day is like. You're going from place to place. You're going to be in the community. What does your day look like when you're here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's not like a typical day. I think being a field representative, you do so many different things. You're trying to juggle all these different things. I think just to kind of talk about the things that we do, we attend a lot of different events. You're a very popular guy, and just being very popular, you get lots of invites to things that you're not able to attend. So Liliana or I or someone else from our team will attend those events. Sometimes those events are to provide certificates. We provide a lot of certificates on behalf of the state legislature to recognize an individual or an organization or whoever can be recognized. So we sometimes have to speak on behalf of you at these events. Sometimes we go to planning group meetings or different community meetings that happen in the evenings. So we talk to neighbors, hear what people's concerns are.
Yeah, your job is not 9 to 5 typical, right? You're talking about evening meetings. If you want to hear what the community is, most people are working. And so a lot of these groups meet in the evenings, including some city councils, right? That we represent some cities, National City, Imperial Beach, Chula Vista. They meet also in the evening. So I assume you're doing some of those as well. That's where you spend a lot of your time, I assume.
Yeah, so a lot of those meetings are usually at 6 p.m. and they go up until 8 p.m. in the evening. And we usually attend those meetings. Those are something called planning group meetings or civic association meetings, which is essentially just kind of like a formal meeting of neighbors that is very specific to a different neighborhood. There's lots of, there's one in Bonita, there's one in Barrio Logan, one in San Isidro, which Lily represents, another one in Otay. They're kind of all over the San Diego County. And what they do is that they're essentially just formalizing a space where they can talk and neighbors can gather.
They can hear from the representatives what they're doing, but also they can raise issues. And I think I'm glad you're talking about this because it's a good point to mention anybody can participate in these. And so when people talk about what is government doing for me, there's any one of these organizations where no matter where you live in San Diego, but obviously in our district where you can go and talk about these things. And so I encourage folks who want to get involved, they can reach out to you and what time are the meetings, when do they meet, and you can provide all that information. At the end of the day, when you guys go home and you're doing this work, what is something that you feel like you've accomplished something, that you've done something for somebody? Because you're dealing with regular, real people on a daily basis. And, do you have any thoughts or experiences that you can remember of something you feel like you've accomplished as a result of your work?
Yes, I think a lot of those feelings of accomplishment, of fulfillment come from casework, constituent casework. I remember one case that I worked on when I first started in the office as an intern back in 2022. And it was this lady that called the office because she had applied for Employment Development Department benefits 2 years before in 2020. And
that's unemployment benefits?
Yes, yeah. Unemployment benefits. And she had been waiting to receive the benefits since then and had issues contacting the department because the benefits went to the wrong person because of a mistake in her social security number. And so she contacted the department, but it was not easy to get a hold of the representative. And then they directed her to her bank, and then her bank directed her back to the department. So when she contacted our office, it was kind of her last option, her last hope that we would be able to help. And when I opened that case, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But then I also contacted the office of the governor, and they were able to also look into the case and help with the case. And it was a great moment when one day the constituent emailed me and she sent me a picture actually of her check, and she said, "Look, I have a surprise for you. This arrived in the mail." And that was such a good feeling because it took her years to recover her benefits.
And she probably, I assume, and don't need to get into too many specifics, but she was probably dealing with economic challenges. I mean, when people are unemployed, it's a very difficult time. And so it probably meant a lot. Do you have any stories? I know you talked about being out in the community, and even you said, we do certificates to acknowledge people and organizations that are doing good work. Any stories that you've take away from an experience that you've had in our office?
Yeah, I think I have maybe two stories come to mind. The first is there was this person who called our office, and I honestly couldn't even tell you the agency that he was calling about that he needed some sort of assistance with. He called our office and he was already in a really bad mood. He was kind of getting put from, he would call one number, that person would would transfer him to another number, and he was just getting tossed around a lot. So by the time that he somehow made it to our office, he was already pretty upset and he wanted to help some assistance from some state agency. And that's one thing that I would encourage people to reach out to our office is when they call usually a state agency, they get on the phone call. The first thing that they hear is some AI is trying to tell you press 1 for English, press 2 for whatever. But when you call us, you're going to speak to either one of us or an intern right away. So you're going to have that face-to-face or phone-to-phone contact. So he was just really appreciative that he was speaking to someone who wasn't going to send him to another office. So I got on the phone with this guy and we talked about 20 minutes and I heard what his issue was. And once I was able to identify that he needed some help that we could provide, we kept in touch and his case was resolved within 4 days. And then his case was closed, case closed. We sent out a thank you letter to him and thank you for reaching out to our office. And then months later, I totally didn't even remember who this person was anymore because we do so many of these cases all the time. We had a community planning, not a community planning group, but we had a community coffee in Barrio Logan. And because I had assisted this person however many months ago, I put him into our system. So now he was getting our newsletters and he was getting updates from our office. So I remember he had told me over the phone that he usually doesn't get involved with government, generally. So because of this interaction that he had with us, he attended the planning, I keep saying planning group, the community coffee in Barrio Logan, and he was able to meet you. And I think it was cool because I didn't recognize him. Obviously, we only spoke over the phone, but I heard his voice and he kind of heard my voice and we kind of did that pointing, hey, I know who you are. And it was really rewarding to kind of see that.
Put a name to a face, right?
Exactly. And he was able to come out, get involved, meet the team, meet you. So that would be one story. And I think the other story is just from attending planning group meetings. I think it's rewarding when we attend planning group meetings or town halls or just things out in the neighborhood. When you're able to kind of develop a relationship with the people who are in the planning groups on the board, people who are very active in their neighborhoods. I've become pretty close with some of the people who are regulars in these meetings. One couple specifically in Bonita, I've gotten very close with them and I've developed a pretty close relationship with them. And I just met them from them attending the planning group meetings and they invited me to their 50th wedding vow renewal and I got to attend that with my girlfriend. And it was just a really wholesome, very rewarding moment that the work that I do is able to kind of transfer into a relationship.
I don't know. You guys are much younger than I am, almost a couple of decades younger. And I'm just curious, younger people and their outlook on what's happening in government and politics, because the stories you're sharing, that used to use the word wholesome, which I think is a good word, but this is why I got involved in government, to do work with the community, to try to make a change in people's lives. Literally, that was the only reason why I got involved. And I feel like I'm happy to hear the stories you're sharing because that's exactly what I would expect, but also appreciate. But there's a lot of cynicism. I guess that's what I wanted to get to, right? And especially with young people, although you hear about young people wanting to be very active and they want to change the world, Like, what's the dynamic right now among younger generations, given that you're doing this work that believes that government has a role and a function to serve people, and then some people who just don't believe that government does anything for anybody? Like, do you have any feelings about that personally?
I mean, I think in our district, there's definitely an older population. So generally, the people who are involved or more involved are an older group. I don't see too many young people involved in just generally in office. There are some, um, but
But they're not going to your civic associations, to your planning group meetings, city councils on a regular basis.
If they are, not too many, but there are some.
Okay.
I guess I've experienced both, because in my planning group meetings, the ones I attend, like for example, the San Isidro Community Planning Group and the Otay Mesa Nestor Community Planning Group, they do have some young people in their boards. And the Otay Mesa Nestor, there's actually a guy that went to high school with me, and we graduated together, and he's a board member now. And at the San Isidro Community Planning Group, the chair, he's a recent graduate too from UCSD. And the new board had brought, that was just elected a couple last month. They have young people that were very interested in getting involved in their community, and now they're part of the board. So now they have a mix of younger people and older people that have more years involved in the community and more experience.
So maybe there's a new appreciation for that, and it sounds like that's more of the exception than the rule, which is, I think, aligned to my experience when I was involved doing the same work you were. It was mainly people who were older, who were engaged, but it's good to hear that there are younger folks. So this is a good moment to maybe, unless anything else you want to share, you have questions for me. Again, taking a big risk here. And so you have not told me what these questions are, but I think we may want to jump into that now. Who wants to go first?
Yes, I can go first.
Go for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know there's so much going on and so much work you're doing, and you have your priorities, which are great. I just want to ask you, like, what do you do to help keep you grounded and ground yourself and give yourself that time to decompress and, just take a moment to yourself with everything that's going on?
It's such a timely question. This week was a little tough of a week. As you all mentioned earlier, I go away on Mondays. I come back Thursdays. As you guys know, my family is very important to me. My wife is an amazing educator, works during the week. My kids are high school and middle school, important age group, always, but, particularly important. And so that is like, that's a heavy weight that is there all the time. And then you've got all the responsibilities of making sure that we're responsive to all these people that you connect with, that we are passing laws that actually matter to people. And then, as you all know, and some people know, I also chair the budget committee for education, which is from like preschool to college and universities. And so I care so much about that I'm always concerned about making sure that we are putting students first and that we are serving young people where they need to be served so they can have the full potential. And so this was a particularly hard week. People don't know the ins and outs of how Sacramento works, but we are literally in the middle of negotiating a budget, and the numbers aren't great in terms of how much money there is. And so we've got to make some difficult decisions. And that includes, I don't oversee healthcare, for example, but I hear from people all the time that they're concerned about their healthcare and being able to have access to care. And the budget currently that the governor has proposed makes a lot of cuts in that space. And so this was a particularly heavy week. So I came home yesterday, and what I typically do on Thursdays is to try and use the word grounded, but to sort of reach a level of like trying to just be normal, is I decided to make meat sauce for spaghetti with the kids. So I went to the store to buy all the ingredients, and then cooked, and then thank goodness the World Cup is on right now. And we are a family that's like totally into it. And we planned to just sit, and we sat and watched the 2 hours of the game in the evening. And that's what we did. And I try to do those. Those are the things I try to do. I try to spend time mainly with family. We have weekends with family. As you all know, Sundays I hardly ever do any community events because it's all about church. And usually we do family gatherings with the extended family. And so that's to me the best way to do this. But yeah, it's difficult to be away and to live in what I call a bubble of Sacramento when you're just talking to the same people. And sometimes you lose sight of what you're doing for real people. And so I try to be very real and normal out in the community when I'm here. Do you have a question?
Yeah. So we as staff, every Monday, we have a staff meeting and we just look at your schedule and we kind of see all the different things that you're going to do throughout the week. But I kind of wanted to see, walk us through a day in Sacramento, because sometimes we look at your schedule and he's going to be here to 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 10 a.m. to 10:30. But there's moments that we're like, oh no, David's gone rogue. He's not answering his phone. No one knows where he is.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? What does your day look like? And also, what does it feel like just having so many people always trying to sway you one way or another? Kind of like your time is not really your time. Your time is everyone else's time. What's that like?
Yeah. And, because I do what I just said earlier, I'm home on the weekends and being very present, I actually believe my time in Sacramento should be spent entirely on doing Sacramento work. And so I rarely in my apartment where I live now before 8 p.m. So 9 to 5 is traditional, right? But then after hours, I try to connect with people. I do coffees, I do dinners to talk about issues. I meet with other colleagues and assembly members and senators to talk about the things they care about, or I am trying to pitch the things that I care about. And so there is no typical day. What you all see on the calendar is the things that I definitely do, but as you say, I often go rogue because there's always things that I do beyond that. I like to visit in person. The texting and Zooming for me is a good tool, but in governing and in politics, it's nothing like relational and it's one-on-one. So I spend a lot of time going to visit people and their offices, knocking on their own doors of my colleagues, talking about the things that they care about. And you're right. And then as I'm walking through the hall to get from one place to another, I'll get stopped by a constituent group. We had a group of kids from San Isidro this week in the Capitol, and you run into them and you see them and you stop and say hello. I also then decided I went rogue and I decided to take them to the assembly floor because they didn't get a chance to see that. And I thought, these group of young people they're doing this great work. They're called Elevate. They're working on public health advocacy on vaping and working with their peers. But they were about to leave back to San Diego and they didn't get to see the actual assembly floor, which to me is just such an amazing piece of history, of California history. So I said, let's go. And so I didn't even look at what the calendar said to do next. And I decided to take them from what as a swing space, which is the building across the street from the Capitol, to the Capitol and show them around. And so I kind of go a lot with the flow. I feel like the job should be very natural and not transactional. That's a term that gets used a lot in politics. I'm definitely not a transactional person. I like to have deep conversation and understand where you're coming from, and may or may not agree with you, but I want to spend the time talking about it. So that's what a day looks like. And it starts often at 8 a.m., not 9 to 5, often at 8 a.m. with morning meetings or Zooms or caucus meetings. And it goes, like I said, to about 8 p.m. on a very regular basis. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, I know you have your experience as a field rep and you were field rep for 6 years. How do you see the work you did back then and the work that you're doing now as a representative, an assembly member?
Yeah, a couple of things I would say, and this is where I make a call out to young people to get involved in the community. I never knew, I've shared this story a number of times, never knew that I'd want to be involved in government or in politics. It was because of my fellowship experience, which is like an internship, that I realized, okay, I can make a difference in my community by doing this. And I started with that, being a fellow intern, volunteering on campaigns, and then getting on an actual working for a state representative. So I really value those experiences. And that's not just, by the way, for politics or government, it's for any field. Like now as a parent, I see that with my 16-year-old, like I want her to go and experience different things to determine what she may end up wanting to do in life. And so I highly value those experiences. That's why we're also doing legislation to try and make it easier for students in high school to do more internship experiences and not count as like absences from their day of school And I think that's more work that needs to happen in this space to be able to give the young people those experiences. So when I was a field rep, that experience of being close to the community, I feel like is the job that I need to do really through you guys and through the rest of the team, because I just can't be everywhere that I think we should be just by myself. We need somebody else there. And so that's why our office is built so heavily on being at every single possible community event that we can, at recognizing the work that people do, whether it's students, organizations, nonprofits, anyone like that, through our very robust program of recognition. Our internship program is really strong. And then Lily, I know we're starting in a couple of weeks,
Legislators
the Young Legislators program, where we're going to take a group of kids to learn about what government is. And those are all things that were really shaped me when I was in a position like yours, to be like, how else can we engage people? I just believe in the strength of people getting involved in community to create a difference. You might also remember one of my first pieces of legislation was a young woman who, at that point, we were still kind of Zooming because of COVID. And so it was a Zoom, I remember, with her and her mother on pharmacogenomics and how to be able to use that as a tool to determine someone's genetic makeup and their impact of drugs, that they are prescription drugs that they're taking. And that was an amazing type of an experience. That is why I feel strongly that we need to engage with people, because ideas come out of talking to people, whether it's groups. And I know you're also working on some legislation now, which we can talk about later, that are rooted in those community conversations that you have when I'm not here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, another question that I would have is, everyone has, even as much as they would love their job, some things that you might not enjoy about your job. Are there any things in your position that you wish you could delegate to someone else, but it's something that's within your responsibilities? And then what would be like one non-negotiable that you're like, I love this about my job?
So I have a very strong feeling about the work that I do being something that I enjoy. We've talked in the podcast previously with folks about faith, and I know when we had Father Scott on here, and even when we had Don Miguel Reyes, the author of the Four Agreements, kind of talked about my approach to the work that I do. I feel really comfortable and at peace with the work that I'm doing, but it's because it's enjoyable. And I run into legislators, obviously, every single day in the elevator, going in and out of meetings. And in the beginning of the day, people ask, how you doing? I almost always answer with the word, I'm excellent. And like, people kind of feel like weird about that. Like, that's, because it's a stressful job. We're all doing so many things and people are being pushed in a million directions. But like, I genuinely do feel great in the morning. Like, I do not go to sleep at night dreading anything that happened or remorseful about anything. I think, sometimes my bills don't pass. They don't get the support that they need. My ideas that we all work so hard on don't go anywhere. And it's a disappointment, but it's not reason to stop like wanting to care. And so I enjoy my job thoroughly. So I think all of that experience, I wouldn't ever want to change, to answer your question. The part that's the hardest has to be the management of time. And if I could trade one thing is if I could get to Sacramento faster and home faster, as opposed to sometimes yesterday I had to sit on the tarmac for probably an hour, even though the flight is like an hour. So we almost sat in the plane doing nothing for an hour, the same amount of time it took to fly from Sacramento to get here. That's time away from my family. It's time away from doing work. It's not that it tires me. It's just I wish I would have easier access back home. That's what I would love. And that's impossible because the capital is 700 miles away, and I have to do that commute every week. So a lot of our work is at the intersection of a lot of different things. My priorities are pretty clear. You guys know them. It's education and it's housing. And because of our unique position, like we're on the border, I kind of feel like this heavy weight of having to be a voice for in the state, because the state is like long, everybody knows the geography, it's long, and our border is shorter, and it's only me and a couple of folks who represent the border in the entire state legislature, and there's 120. So I often have to talk about this is why our region is so unique. And that's one of the things that I appreciate that in the work that we do, you help us with, for example, our Baja Friday events, where we bring people down to south of the border so they can understand this very unique dynamic of the almost 200,000 people who cross the border every day. And we're in a very unique place. So that also brings a lot of unique challenges, and it's been really, really exciting. Any thoughts on that and that interaction that you can have some questions around?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about the Cali Baja Friday events. So the Cali Baja Fridays are something that you put together, and we've had 4 Cali Baja trips, so, and they center around a certain theme that has to do with our binational space, different sectors. So we've had 4. The last one we did touched on the Tijuana River Valley. So we did a tour of the IBWC, the South Bay wastewater treatment plant. So we got an exclusive tour of that plant, and then we also got a tour of the treatment plant in Tijuana, the San Antonio de los Buenos plant. So it's an educational tour. It's an educational trip. We invite constituents who are very involved, and it's very rewarding to have those constituents who, this is an issue that's very meaningful and it impacts their daily lives. So to be able, that's another reason for constituents to get involved with our office, because they can get to do things that they as an individual constituent might otherwise not have the opportunity to do so.
That was a really great, again, greatly organized event. Congratulations to you and Katia, because we hear about this issue in the newspaper all the time. People talk about it, but to see the facility on our side and what needs to happen to improve that. But then when we crossed south and we went to the San Antonio de los Buenos, which is the Mexican treatment facility, which is all tied into all of this, to be able to be there and actually see it. I've heard it being talked about for like decades, but I had never been. And we had access to that. And we had constituents that like you said, that care about it. They were asking all sorts. It was just like a very educational, very good event. And like you said, we do that around different issues. This time It happened to be around that issue. But, and we got to ask some questions about Mexican officials and what are they doing and some clarity. So a lot of great feedback on that. We've done that tour on other issues as well. We do a lot of community events, and I know, Liliana, you're a part of some of those, right?
Yes. So we've organized, our office has organized many events, and some of our events are every year, like the college fair. Mm-hmm. And I know Lisa puts a lot of effort into them, and they're great events, and she contacts a lot of schools, universities, colleges, trade schools. And even though she prepares so much for them, there are things that are out of our control. Like in 2024, it got canceled because of the border tube fire. But then we had it again in 2025, and it was raining. It was pouring. It was raining. There was so much
wind. We thought no one was going to show up.
And we had families show up, and even families that crossed the border early to attend the event because they know the importance of it. They know the importance of completing the FAFSA application, of meeting representatives from different schools and learning about the different opportunities out there, because there are opportunities and there's so much potential in our region, in our binational region, that it's so fulfilling and so heartwarming to see so many families attend.
Yeah, and that event is particularly personal to me just because I'm a first-generation student. There's so many students out there that just can't navigate that. As you all know, Xochitl, my wife, does work with first-generation students, and she tells me about the deep level of work she does with those families. And so to be able to bring those resources and bring universities from throughout the country to San Diego where they can ask those questions directly, get help with prepared counselors on doing the FAFSA, and many other resources that were there, college and career opportunities as well for people who want to pursue careers out of high school. That's a really important event for me, which, every year there's something, and it's always, but also every year it's grown. You guys have done a great job of reaching out, doing outreach, and I think we have some very ambitious goals to grow that to like even more hundreds of kids and families this year. So we'll do we have a date yet for that event? Do you know?
I know it's in October, I believe October 17th.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll put that information out, but everybody's welcome to that. It's, again, everything we're talking about, free. There's no requirements, open to the public. Everything we do is open to the public. Then we have town halls and coffees on a regular basis throughout the entire district. Yeah.
The Holiday Posada that's coming back this year, which is a great event. We had
like 300 people at that one.
Yes. Our RSVP list kept growing, and what was amazing about that event is that we received donations for the Chula Vista Animal Care Facility, which really helped their dogs, the cats. There were great blankets. We received a lot of blankets for them. And then we also received adult diapers, which we distributed across the different senior centers in the 80th district, which was really amazing.
Yeah, a lot of needs in the community. So it's great to do these events to serve from young people to older people. So I appreciate all that work that you do. And then also sometimes leads to more work, whether it's advocating for the budget, like obviously on all our university work that we're doing. We are always trying to find resources to make sure that UCs and San Diego State and CSUs are working with Southwestern College to bring these educational opportunities. And excited that this fall we're launching the first bachelor's degrees in South San Diego County. That's very, very exciting, in nursing and public health and a couple others. And we're really building a higher education ecosystem in the South County. But that all happens because of these meetings, because talking to all these folks in the community and the advocacy that happens, which have you been surprised by the advocacy, like people who are really working hard on behalf of a particular issue that you can think of?
I would say there's a lot of students who are crossing the border who get involved a lot with different education related topics that we do. Particularly on AB 91, that was a bill that you passed a couple years ago that essentially gave students in-state tuition. We live in the San Diego Cali Baja region. We talk about that all the time. And even within our office, I think I consider myself a fronterizo. I know that Lily does and Katia does as well. And for anyone who's not familiar with the term of a fronterizo, it is not specific to San Diego, Tijuana, but in our case, it is. It's someone who's kind of always gone back and forth between San Diego and Tijuana. And AB 91 kind of took into account a lot of these fronterizo students who live in Tijuana but commute across the border every day to either go to Southwestern, UCSD, SDSU. And I think it's something that's really cool because my parents in the early 90s went to Southwestern College. My parents met there in the early 90s. And this is a legislation that would have been very relevant to them in the early 90s. It's something that's very relevant, and it's going to continue to be relevant now for students, and it will continue to be helpful to them.
We have, so you guys know the border crossing because we all experience it on a regular basis, which is very normal to us, but it's not to many other people in California. Again, over close to 200,000 people just at San Ysidro alone, which is a massive number of people crossing, most of them to work, actually, as the research shows, but a good percentage are students. And we forget San Diego has become, and California has become so unaffordable, which is why housing is an issue that I care about. But people are now living, Americans are now going to live in Tijuana, and they commute. And again, it's a border crossing. It sounds more challenging, and sometimes it is. But, some people commute from San Diego to Riverside, and it could be a shorter commute from Tijuana to San Diego than it is San Diego to Riverside. And so AB 91 is a clear example of us trying to be responsive to what's actually happening with our community, of our families who are there. These are our families that maybe because of circumstances can't afford to live here. They now live. So we have that bill that was AB 91, as you talked about. But by the way, I want to say it's not unique to us. The state of Texas, which is another border state with Mexico, has been acknowledging Mexican students as in-state students in their university system for decades now. And so it's a sort of a reality that for us, these students cross. Not only that, they're going to eventually contribute once they get their education to our regional economy. And so that's an example of a bill. We have a bill right now, actually, again, reflective of our own examples. It's the Bottle Parity Act that we have, which would allow people who cross to the Guadalupe Valley, which is our wine country that's closest to us than Napa is, right? We're closer to Guadalupe Valley in Baja California, where some law many, many years ago only allowed one bottle to be crossed back of wine for people's consumption. Whereas if you fly into California or you come through a seaport of entry, you can bring more alcoholic beverages from other countries. And this is for personal consumption and is not for sale or anything. But people who go to the Guadalupe Valley may want to bring 2 bottles of wine because they won't be back for another, year, or maybe if they're lucky, they'll come back in 6 months. Well, this bill, which is a state law and we thought was a federal law, but because of this type of information sharing, we know that it's a state law. We're looking to change that to allow them to bring a couple bottles instead of just one every month. And so it's, again, meant for personal consumption, but for people who travel, who want to go visit, because people who travel to Baja California, as you guys know, eventually there's a connection to San Diego and to our economy. They spend money for us and they create jobs for us. And so we want to make sure that all that's successful for that reason. So these are the types of things that, as you mentioned, as fronterizos, is very unique to us, but very important to our economy, to our way of life, to our culture, to our communities, and to the family. So it's very unique, and it's an exciting part of the job that we have that's very unique to us, because someone in LA or an assembly member in San Francisco or the Bay Area, doesn't have these challenges. They're a little bit different. Is there anything else you guys want to share before we log off here? Anything that you thought about while we were chatting today? No?
Nothing's coming to mind, no.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for the work that you do. It really matters significantly. You're working on legislation. We didn't even talk about that. You're working on something related to MTS, which is our transit system. We have the most utilized transit line in San Isidro of the whole transit system in San Diego. That's why MTS matters to us, and we have this legislation. You're working on legislation related to the visas for immigrants who may be victims of crime, something that we know is a big issue for people. We want to make sure that if people are victims of crime, that they report them and that they have recourse. And so these are things that came from our community. And I know you get a chance to go to Sacramento. Both of your bills are still moving. So congratulations to you on this is the first bill you ever work on, and it's going through the process. Hopefully, we'll get to the committees in the next few weeks, and then hopefully get signed by the governor. But this is the work that we do. I appreciate the work that you do. Thank you for the nights and weekends that I know you spend doing this work. I know sometimes constituents can be difficult. I remember being on the receiving end of some of those calls, and people are frustrated because they haven't gotten a response. But we want to remind them that that's what we're here for, to facilitate the conversation. We may not be the answer, but we can facilitate you getting to your answer. And so I want to thank you for the work that you do. And I hope that it's a job that keeps you in public service, short-term and long-term, because we need people in public service that have their heart in it for the community. And so thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's our show. Thank you to Liliana and Ernesto and everybody else who does work in public service. I want to thank them not just for being here today, but for what they do every single day in our district. This is what I want you to take away. Our office is your office. If you're stuck with a state agency, if your unemployment claim is frozen, if you can't get an answer on your Medi-Cal case, if you don't know who to call us. You heard the people who will pick up the phone. You can reach our district office in Chula Vista at 619-498-8580 or visit our website at a80.asmdc.org. You don't need to know how the government works to ask for help. That's what we're here for. This has been Dreaming Big, Working Hard. I'm David Alvarez. Thank you. And until the next time, keep dreaming big and keep working hard.